Welcome to a very special segment of ACRP TV. Our spotlight today is called The Power of Clinical Trials, A Personal Story. We've got a really special guest with us today, Catherine Shuster, who's the public member of the ACRP Board of Trustees, and she's got a special guest behind us that she's going to talk about in just a second. But we all know the importance of clinical trials, certainly with COVID and everything, but sometimes we forget that we're talking about human beings here, and these are matters of life and death, and the importance of clinical trials. The work clinical trial professionals do is just amazing, and it's to be applauded. And hopefully this segment will be a bit inspiring for you. But Catherine, I want you to take over and talk to us about why clinical trials mean so much to you. I think it began about 40 years ago with Seymour there and a surprise heart attack. So please tell your story.
Yes, thank you for having me on, Michael. Yes, it did start about 40 years ago. Seymour and I were dating, and he came out to meet my parents and ended up having a heart attack. And lo and behold, we never thought that that would begin a journey, that he is still alive today. And that is due to the work that people do in clinical trials, whether it be drug related or device related or incremental improvements. But I truly believe that he is alive today because of all of that. And being the public member, I'm thrilled to be able to give back to clinical trials. He started with, as I said, about 40 years ago with a heart attack, and we didn't really realize what it was because it wasn't the crushing chest heart attack. So when we got back to Chicago, his best friend said, we're going to rule out the heart and we'll go on from there. He was not a cardiologist. And we went to the cardiologist, and the guy said, you had a heart attack. Ended up back in the hospital. And back then, this was in the early, it was 1980, bypass surgery was not common. After about a month, they decided that they would do bypass surgery on him. And that was the first time that he had any kind of surgery, or knowing that this was something that he was going to be dealing with the rest of his life. And
stem cell, if I recall correctly from speaking with you before, stem cells and trials were integral to this happening.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he had bypass surgery in 1980, bypass surgery in 1990. Then he had 17 stents. He had stem cells injected into his left ventricle. He had brachytherapy in his main coronary. He had 2 implanted cardiac defibrillators. He also ended up with what's called a left ventricular assist device, a device that pumps your heart for you, and eventually a heart transplant. And that was over a period of about 40 years. And like I said, given all of that, we have a friend that read, or was a doctor, that said a doctor read his history and didn't know him, that say, oh, gee, that's too bad. When did he die? But obviously he didn't. And I think part of the thing too was we learned that when a doctor tells you there's nothing more we can do, don't always take that as gospel. I mean, the first time we were told that, I didn't realize how much it got us down and depressed. But lo and behold, we found that there was a way around it. And he was able to have the kind of stent that he needed. And today he's alive in part because of that. And
right.
The other thing that really was amazing to me was how different things were with time. The first time, well, when you go through bypass surgery, that's a pretty major surgery. And recovery it was much easier the second time recovery than the first time, but it's still a recovery. The first time he ever had a stent, the first day before he had it, he was huffing and puffing and could barely walk. The day after, I mean, it's like a new person, like nothing ever happened. That one little thing could make such a huge difference is phenomenal to me. So we just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And we probably heard, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do, at least a dozen times. And we were very fortunate to find things that they actually could do to improve him and extend his life. He just happened to be where he needed to be.
And we're calling this segment The Power of Clinical Trials. Seymour there is living, breathing proof of it.
Yes,
So
he
I
is.
want to ask you, you've got a platform right now. I think a lot of people in the clinical trial industry and hopefully outside the industry, people who are interested might be watching this segment. What would you like to say to the clinical trial professionals who've done and contributed to this work and in other important areas too?
All I can say is thank you. It has made obviously such a dramatic difference in our lives. If that had not happened, I would have been a widow long, long, long time ago. So thank you very much. Whether it be a big thing, a little thing, or you're just getting into the field, it makes a big difference in people's lives. So thank you all.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing your story. And Seymour, thank you for hanging in with us back there. We really appreciate it. It's really inspiring. And again, as I said at the beginning, we can sometimes forget how important the work of clinical trial professionals truly is. We can get bogged down in numbers and operational things, but we are literally talking about people and life and death and improving the quality of life. And it's a pretty high calling. And the industry is to be applauded, and you're to be applauded for both being involved with ACRP and your help and sharing your story today. So I want to thank you so much, Catherine Shuster, for joining us today. And Seymour, thank you too.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you again. This has been our special ACRP TV segment on the power of clinical trials, a personal story, and a very special segment. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.